This quarterback was elite in high school. This quarterback was elite in college. This quarterback's been elite in the NFL. He's only 25 years old, yet somehow people are still disrespecting this man. I mean, he's going too late in fantasy football drafts. I still find myself drafting his wide receivers over and over again. Before we get into him, though, make sure you're dropping a like on this video. Subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. And of course, if you play fantasy football, you would love flockfantasy.com. Over there on flockfantasy.com, you can find all my 2023 fantasy football rankings. You can find all my dynasty rankings. You can find all the premium content of all your favorite fantasy football creators. And when you sign up with promo code FLOCK, you are going to get 30% off any subscription. And with promo code FLOCK, yours truly will go through and break down your fantasy football team with the podcast. But that should be it. And I don't want to let you know who this guy is right away. I'd love to know if you could go down there in the comment section and guess who it is as we go through this. But I wanted to put some screeners on to just understand exactly how talented this quarterback is and exactly how much respect should be put on his name. So first thing is, starting with high school, obviously I'm not going to dive into his high school statistics here. That wouldn't matter at all. But the man was a five-star prospect. He was the #1 dual threat quarterback in the nation. Then he goes to college, right? And what does he do? He has arguably the best or one of the best college quarterback careers that we have ever seen. He goes, replaces a future stud quarterback in the NFL. He replaces him as a starter as a true freshman in the SEC. You should know who this is by now. And he just completely dominates as that true freshman, and adjusted yards per pass attempt at 9.9. Then going to his true sophomore season at 12.8. Then his junior season, his adjusted yards per pass attempt at 13.4. The man has 33 passing touchdowns to 3 interceptions. The man has a 71% completion percentage. The man is sitting at 2,800 passing yards through 9 games that year. If you put into context how impressive this college season is, if we look at all quarterbacks, and this is since 1956, and their career adjusted yards per pass attempt, he sits #1. #1. This is ahead of, quarterbacks that are now in the NFL: Mac Jones, CJ Stroud, Kyler Murray, Justin Fields, Baker Mayfield. It is incredible to see this. So if we're looking at it, right, you're a 5-star high school recruit. You go and you replace a future stud NFL quarterback in college. Then you post arguably the most impressive college career that we've ever seen. Keep in mind, I love adjusted yards per pass when evaluating these QBs because it is highly predictive of future quarterback play. What it is you take the passing yards for that quarterback, you divide it by their overall passing attempts, but of course that can't encapsulate everything because then you have touchdowns, you have interceptions, so you have the adjustment to give a boost for touchdowns and to take away for interceptions. In my mind, it's the best way to evaluate overall quarterback play. Of course, you need to keep into account rushing, but nonetheless, 5-star recruit, dominates in college, arguably the best career we've seen. And maybe you say, well, Mason, come on, man. There are a lot of quarterbacks that can go to a college, be surrounded by top-level talent, can be the product of a scheme, and go ahead and just dominate even if they're not going to be great in the NFL. And that's a completely fair argument to make, right? But then once you see this guy go to the NFL and dominate and ascend to the top of the position immediately, you should say, okay, well, he's great there, great there, great there. He's great, okay. If we're looking at all quarterbacks 24 years old or younger that have averaged 250 passing attempts a game and 8.5 adjusted yards per pass attempt in an individual season, you have Patrick Mahomes, who did it twice in 2018 and 2019. You have Josh Allen, who did it once, and that was in 2020. You had Deshaun Watson, who did it once, and that was in 2018. And then you have Tua Tagovailoa. He is the only quarterback that has done it outside of Mahomes, Allen, or Watson since the year 2000. We all know Patrick Mahomes is elite. We all know Josh Allen is elite. We all know Deshaun Watson is elite. Why is Tua not viewed the same? Now, I understand maybe you're going to say, well, Mason, come on, man. I mean, maybe he's great from a real life perspective. Maybe he's hyper efficient, but I don't necessarily know if he's actually going to score fantasy football points. Well, if we look at what he did last year, the man was at the very top of the position in fantasy points as well. And now, of course, Tua dealt with concussions, which we'll get into in just 1 second. But if we are going to be removing the games where he played fewer than 90% of the snaps, so those are the games that he dealt with the concussion, he left early, you are looking at a quarterback that averaged 19.23 fantasy points per game. That would have been good for the quarterback 6. The only quarterbacks that would have been ahead of that were Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, and Justin Fields. Now let's go over to Underdog Drafts right now and let's see where all these quarterbacks are going, because this is where Tua belongs. This is right where he is. And of course, as I pull this up, if you want to get in an Underdog draft, it's never too late. I'm drafting teams on Underdog literally every single day until the season starts. If you go sign up for Underdog and use promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. Plus, you'll get my 2023 fantasy football rankings. Plus, you will get a free trial to flockfantasy.com. It's best ball, so there's no time commitment at all during the season. It's how I drafted 700 teams last year and how I won $150,000. But nonetheless, let's pull this up. And these quarterbacks that did this, Patrick Mahomes being drafted as the quarterback 1. Jalen Hurts being drafted as the quarterback 2. Josh Allen being drafted as the quarterback 3. Lamar Jackson being drafted as the quarterback 4. Justin Fields being drafted as the quarterback 6. And then you have Tua all the way down as the QB 11. You have Tua going behind Anthony Richardson, a rookie this season. Now, I understand what you're going to say. And we actually had this comment in a live stream earlier in the day where someone went out and said, well, Mason, you know what, man? I mean, Tua is too prone to see a concussion. I mean, Tua is going to get hit in the head and then he is immediately going to be concussed, where we don't have to worry about that with other quarterbacks. And to simply state it, that's a very bad way to think. It is laughably wrong in my mind. And you have to understand a couple different things. One, injuries in fantasy football are primarily random. Now, I understand if a player gets injured twice and another guy gets injured not at all, we initially think right away, oh, okay, well, yeah, that means this is someone that's going to continue to get injured. This is someone that's never going to get injured. And this is what led a lot of people, including myself, to draft Jonathan Taylor over Christian McCaffrey in fantasy last season. Now, it's not to say the concussions aren't a concern at all, and that if Tua does see a concussion this next season, it will be a more severe injury, a more severe concussion compared to a quarterback that has never been concussed. So just say, for instance, Kirk Cousins hasn't dealt with anything recently, right? So if Kirk Cousins were to see a concussion, maybe he's going to be out 1 to 2 weeks. Where if Tua sees a concussion, maybe he's going to be out a month. Now that is a concern, but it does not mean, and it is not true, that Tua is more likely to be concussed this next season or more likely to miss games this next season than a quarterback that did not deal with concussions this past year. Now, I understand what you're also going to say. You're going to say, well, Mason, come on. I mean, Tua was the number 1 quarterback in high school. He's the number 1 quarterback in college. I mean, he was elite early on in his NFL career just simply because he is always put into a phenomenal situation. It's just the situation. It's just the situation. It's the coaching staff. It's the wide receivers, where I'm not going to sit here and argue against that. I mean, Tua in 2019 at Alabama had one of the craziest rosters you could ever imagine. Like, let's go ahead and let's pull up Alabama in 2019 just so we can illustrate how nasty this team was and how it allowed Tua to go out there and average 13.4 adjusted yards per pass attempt. This Alabama roster had Najee Harris, had Brian Robinson, Jerome Ford at running back. Wide receiver, you had Devonta Smith, Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, and Jalen Waddle, plus John Mechie down there as well. I mean, this was arguably the best roster in college football in 2019, which is fair to say maybe he was the best quarterback in college football history because of his roster. I'm not going to argue against that. But if you're going to make an argument that he was only this good in the NFL because the situation that was there in Miami, I would come back with the fact that this Miami Dolphins situation has possibly only gotten better. I mean, if you're going to be looking at the Dolphins, now this is year 2 with this coaching staff. This is year 3 with Jalen Waddle. This is going to be the second season with Tyreek Hill. It would be a little bit different if Tyreek Hill was like pushing 31, right? Like if you were looking at Tyreek and going, come on, man. I mean, Tyreek's going to be seeing a massive step back. Sure, you could make the argument the situation may get a little bit worse, but Tyreek Hill's still in his prime. Tyreek Hill is 29 years old. I mean, there's a reason right now Tyreek Hill is a top 5 wide receiver in fantasy football drafts. And if you're looking at Waddle, I mean, the man is only continuing to improve. The only thing that has really changed for the negative with this situation could possibly be the departure of Mike Gesicki. I mean, hell, you even add in Devon Achane into a backfield that didn't really have a capable pass catcher this past season. So I am completely fine going through drafting Tua at ADP. I'm fine drafting him ahead of ADP. I'm targeting Tyreek Hill at pick 3 in underdog drafts right now. Really like taking Waddle in the middle part of the second round in these underdog drafts. Now, when it comes to the backfield, I'm going to be a little bit hesitant just because I do think that a veteran running back is going to go over to Miami because 1, no state income tax. 2, a massive hole in the roster. 3, they are contenders primarily because of Tua. So I'm not necessarily super excited to be drafting the running back in this backfield. But nonetheless, even if you were looking at the player prop that Underdog has on Tua right now, I mean, this is a line that in my mind makes some sense to entertain. Now, of course, I am still on the side. I'm not taking any more thans on Underdog lines right now. Like if you were looking at it, I would say they probably have Tua a little too low at 3,800 passing yards. This is less than Jared Goff. This is less than Derek Carr. This is less than Aaron Rodgers. This is the same as Russell Wilson. I think, honestly, these projections are even too low when it comes to Tua this next season. But like I said, generally not looking to take the more than on season-long props because so many things can go wrong and everything has to go right for those guys to hit that mark. But I think that's all I have for you in this video. Please let me know what you think. And of course, if you have not done so already, go down there, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. And if you want to get in a draft with us today, tomorrow, the next day, you know we're drafting every single day on the live stream, specifically on Underdog Fantasy. When you sign up to Underdog Fantasy with promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. You'll get my 2023 fantasy football rankings, get a free trial to flockfantasy.com, and hell, you can have some fun getting to some best ball drafts with us. But I think that's all I have for you. Again, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Really appreciate you and really hope you have a great day.